I'm a contracted part-time firefighter for the department. I started in the December of the '07. I love the job. You know, you've got the best office in the world. You know, you often sort of say to yourself, wonder what the rich people are doing. You're out here and, you know, every day's different. You don't get bored. It's awesome. We'd done a bit of touring around that morning, and we'd sort of ended up through here, and there was a lot of trees down across the road after a bit of a sort of stormy patch, and we'd cleared a tree off up the road here a bit and got it to a safe place where we thought we could push it off quite comfortably. And yeah, unfortunately, a minor accident turned into a big accident. Once we'd pushed the tree off the road here, it either got me caught up with my jacket, or, you know, I'd over pushed the tree, and yeah, it pushed me all the way through there. Come a guts are on the rocks down there, and managed to break 2 vertebrae.
It happened that I was the first person to arrive from outside. He turned up, Grech was lying pretty much where I'm sitting now. When you see someone who's in as much pain as he clearly was, it's hard not to think the worst.
I knew that that Rob was in a lot of pain because I could physically hear him on the radio at the other end. I arrived on the incident site shortly after the ambulance. The first words that Rob said when I got on scene were, you know, "I'm sorry, Dave," and you know, what about my job? What about my job? Because in his role as a project firefighter, you know, he's required to be of peak fitness, so he knows, you know, what the implications are. If he's not in peak fitness, he doesn't come back.
Dave, Rob's supervisor, rang me to advise me that Rob had suffered the injury and that they'd organised him to go to the Alfred Hospital, and had advised the parents, and I had to liaise with the hospital via his mother, and wrote a letter to the hospital to advise them that we'd be taking care of Rob. Yeah, no, I popped around to see him this morning, and he seems to be...
Karina was very important for my parents. She supplied them with all the relevant information that they needed to help me, and without Karina, you know, the stress that would have been put on Mum and Dad, yeah, it would have been tenfold. In that injury, I sustained 2 broken vertebrae. My T11 and my L1 were damaged pretty bad with fractures and chips. Laying in the Alfred, and especially during the night time when you didn't have family and friends and work colleagues visiting you, you got a lot of time to reflect on the possibilities of what could go wrong, and what if this was to happen, if, you know, how were you going to handle it if you weren't going to walk again, or you couldn't do the things that you wanted to do. When I arrived home, it was good to, you know, be home, but it was the start of the rehab, and, you know, it was still a long process by then to get through, both mentally and physically. And my first night sleeping in my bed was agony. Trying to find the strength to stay mentally strong and not let the little demons get into your head was very important. Being away from work and having, you know, all my mates back at work, and it almost made me feel like I was out of the game. I didn't want to be at home, I didn't want to be injured. I wanted to be back at work, and I wanted to be amongst the guys.
We were keen to get Rob back as soon as we could, not just for his well-being and to know that he was healthy, but there was definitely a gap. You probably notice when people aren't here more than sometimes when they are. You see what they do and you take it for granted when they're here. When they're not here and they're missing, especially for a long time, like he was 3 months, it's a big hole, and suddenly you're really aware of how much that person does and how much the team relies on them.
I think the moral support of the bosses here was tremendous. Visiting at home, if we wanted to catch up with him, or if we were going over the Black Range, we'd go over there and say hello and catch up with him on the phone, and I was always pretty excited to see somebody instead of just a TV, I think.
There were regular trips back to the Alfred. Every 3 months I needed to go back for x-rays as well as just general checkups. When it came time, Dave and Karina made sure that I had, guys from work and work colleagues to take me down, who gave me extra support and made me feel more comfortable.
Taking Rob down to Melbourne was good fun, having a good chat with him, catching up and actually seeing how he's feeling and what he's going through. And I'd been in a situation a few years earlier and spent a bit of time in hospital, and I think I could pass on the support that I knew I got and I needed and put it in normal people's sort of terms, that the department will support your family. I think that gave me a lot of relief, and eased a lot of tension, thinking that where am I going to be? What's going to happen? How's it going to work? Who's going to pay for it?
I want to reassure Rob that we were here to help him. He was getting quite saddened and I suppose anxious about will he ever be able to come back to work again. I decided to come and visit Rob, and we discussed the return to work and how we were going to plan it out. He was really happy after we'd met. He knew that there was going to be the next stage, there was going to be that option of coming back, there was going to be a future back with the department.
Rob's actual return to work back here was great. But basically, it's just a simple matter of trying to work out what he can do, as according to what his doctors have stated, and he slowly just increases his workload back to full recovery.
When he came back to work, he started off doing half days, 2 to 3 times a week, and he was happy. He was really excited to be back at work.
Rob's a great example of that, getting him back on a graded return to work, just for a few hours at a time, just to get him back mixing with his colleagues and mates in the workplace. When he told me he had completed his fire medical and passed, I said to him, you'll be able to do your task-based analysis test in a few weeks. And he said, I've already done it and I've passed at 20 kilo. And I just couldn't believe it. I really didn't think he was going to be back full on that fire season, but he was.
The benefit of a stage return, in that Rob came back to light duties and then slowly increased them, is paramount to his recovery. I think by Rob being away for, say, a longer period, 2 months, just puts great stress on him and on the guys here. The ability for the department to support its workers, it makes me feel really confident in the fact that I know if it was to happen to me or other workers, that we have the ability to be able to get someone back to work as quickly as possible.
Looking back down there and to where I am today, I would never have thought I would have gotten to here and gotten back to work as quick as I could. But the support of the guys and the want to be around them, it made me get back to work.
The Rob Grech case was one of the most successful ones I've been a part of, and a lot to do with his attitude and just really wanting something. And it's not only just his attitude, but it was also the support and the attitude of his colleagues and mates here at the work site.